takes 30 years to build a reputation and 30 seconds to destroy it.
That's very overwhelming.
The way we worked around it is we said, well, you can put this on ice cream. Vanilla ice cream and Screwball peanut butter whiskey go really, really well together.
Risk tolerance for me right now is more important than ever to take a risk. It is very scary. I understand what the economy is and I understand what a lot of stuff is at. But at the end of the day, it's like, this is the only time to really get noticed.
In the world of AI and everywhere we're going, yeah, you can have a lot of information out there, but there's a big difference between being a fad and an overnight success and having a lasting brand.
Just because you build it doesn't mean anybody's going to come.
Yeah, you think Mike said it?
I do. Yes, I do. I was told I'm on brand. Apparently you're all about pink now.
No, we have not rebranded it to pink.
What's the theme? What's the theme for the year?
Raise the bar.
Raise the bar.
Yep. Oh, just gonna go next level.
Did we mic check?
And that's it.
Yeah, mic check is good.
Can you introduce yourself and share a bit about your background?
I can kick it off. Anna Crowe, and I'm the founder CEO of Crowe PR. Similar to you, Josh, we are celebrating 10 years in business.
Yep.
And so I oversee our strategy for handling public relations between media, earned media, social media, influencer marketing for consumer packaged goods, healthcare technology, and destinations brands. And you, my friend?
Sweet. My name is Josh Roush. Started Movetic 10 years ago. Same thing. We focus in the CPG arena, hospitality, entertainment, technology, you name it. Very similarly, oversee all the operations and everything with our agency.
Nice.
So what's going on today? Why are we sitting down? Josh?
Yeah, well, I think just excited just to kind of catch up, 2025, just here, just to connect with a good colleague and friend and just kind of get everybody up to speed with what's up.
Yeah, going into the year, lots going on in the external environment that impacts marketers and brands. So good to sit down and just chat through what we're seeing, what's next, what we're working on, and go from there.
Cool. And appreciate you guys having me.
So with that, how did your partnership come to life and what drew you to working together?
One day I just had an email and there it was, and 10 years later, now he's on the couch.
Pretty much, yes. That is actually it. Yes.
We started working together through our collaborations with a peanut butter whiskey company, the original peanut butter whiskey, Screwball. And Josh's team did a fantastic job creating all the branding, right?
Yep.
Our team was tasked with taking a then 2-month-old brand and putting it on the map. And thankfully they're on a global map now. It's been really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say like the other thing too, that's I think even when we started working together, so we helped bring their idea to life. And I think one of the things that caught my attention, you guys, was just how you guys want to be so different, right? I think most PR agencies have such a unique facet with how they do it, but I think what attracted me to you guys was just kind of the way you guys wanted to do things. And I think like knowing Brittany and Steven, everybody know them, such amazing humans, and they really want to do things differently. And I think that's what truly kind of kicked off the relationship on the right foot.
Absolutely. And the other thing I would add to that is I think we're all very authentic and real people, including the founders and us, and we're able to have good conversations. We're able to see, hey, this is working, this is not working, so that there are no obstacles for us getting to the next level.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's just so key in today's day and age, especially like when there's so much competition, so many companies. Like finding the true north in the individuals is really what sets you out.
Yeah, love that.
Speaking of that, what excites you most about where branding and PR are headed?
It's so interesting, right? Because we live in such an overconsumption area right now. Social media is just over inundated. And then you have like the polar opposite of like conscious consumer, wealth net, and like all these different facets. And so for me, I think what excites me is it kind of goes back to what we both stand for, authenticity, right? Like how the heck are you going to get noticed? There's so much competition, oversaturation. And I think what excites me is that like everybody's got to reinvent themselves.
Absolutely. The fact that everything is so dynamic creates such beautiful opportunities, right? And in the world of AI and everywhere we're going, yeah, you can have a lot of information out there, but customers are pretty savvy today and they can suss out. And there's a big difference between being a fad and an overnight success and having a lasting brand. And that authenticity is where, really plays in the ladder. So making sure we're telling real stories about real companies, real people that are doing real powerful things and impacting the world.
Yep, absolutely.
What major shifts are you seeing in the market right now?
Well, I think technology is obviously one we've seen for many, many years, but it just keeps accelerating. So to me, it's like every time I wake up, there's something new, that's been plugged into a social media app or another new technology. So that is changing the way customers are behaving and buying from brands and how they're engaging, how they're connecting. And so I think that's really the big change. I think it's changed so much more in the last 5 years than ever before. That's that unprecedented rate. And so our job is to always be mindful of that and say, okay, how are customers connecting, engaging with our clients, with the brands? And what do we need to do to better tell the story, to better create those connections and really help amplify sales and growth for those organizations?
Yeah, and I think the other thing too that's just so interesting is that like you look and you rewind like probably like 5 to 10 years, right? It used to be maybe 5 to 7 touch points, maybe might be it, right? And then it totally doubled. And then now we're at a point where I think it's like maybe like 20 to 30. It's pretty insane the amount of touch points it takes to even get in front of it. Yep. So I think at the end of the day, even though all these micro and macro trends are effectively hitting the business landscape, I think what's impressive about it is just the strategy, right? So even a lot of stuff that we do daily, kind of going back to your core values, who you are, your purpose, your why, to what you're doing, is really going to ring true in regards to that. So I think that we're definitely in a very interesting spot, but if you find trusted people to work with, those are the people that are meant to be your stewards moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. And what else that reminds me of is, if you think about a couple of years ago, we were talking about metaverse and everyone wearing virtual reality and sitting in rooms and doing all these things. And that is still moving forward, yes, but there's also so much to be said for experiential and people wanting to connect in person, people wanting to be around. And so even thinking back to some of those grassroots marketing tactics, when you're really doing PR stunts and you're connecting and engaging your customers in real life and in the digital world, I think there's a lot more opportunity coming our way now, especially post the pandemic, sort of bringing back that nostalgia.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? Because I think at the end of the day, fundamentally, everything that a brand stands for, if you align well, it all comes back to human connection. Mm-hmm. So no matter if you're in person or you're digital, you name it, I think consumers just want that. And I think right now we're at a very interesting spot to kind of figure out what that looks like, right? And so whether it be a PR event or branding, right, everything has to be all comprehensive around values. Yeah. And I think that's just like the cool part. I think it's hard for a lot of people to grasp it, but at the end of the day, like us consumers wanting to align with companies that make us feel good about a certain stance. And that's where I think people are actually going towards as well.
Absolutely. And I also love that connection between our agencies with regards to storytelling. Yeah. We tell stories, and stories are so powerful. Yep. I mean, stories have been around for millions, thousands of years.
A long time. And ChatGPT that please real quick. Just make sure that we're right.
How many years people have been telling stories? And that's still a basic human need to hear a story, to connect to a story.
Yep, absolutely.
Speaking of that, what does it take for a brand to stand out in today's crowded landscape?
Yeah, I'll take that. I think like back to kind of just using the example of Screwball and Stephen and Brittany, I think there's a lot of facets, right? I think when you look at the competitive landscape to where we're at today, everybody's talking, feeling, tasting every part the exact same, right? And so the only true north that anybody does have is authenticity within themselves and the true story that they want to have. I think like what's happening or what was happening was maybe somebody had a really flashy brand, but the product wasn't good, or vice versa, right? And I think right now you need to innately kind of elevate both things and have really powerful UVPs and a very powerful brand. So like I think that's like what's starting to kind of unsurface is that when you were maybe running ads digitally and it was working well, maybe the ROAS isn't working anymore and maybe you shift to retail, well, maybe you don't have those funds to kind of do it as well. So we're seeing shifts all across the way, but I think it has to come back to a valuable product and a valuable brand.
Some of your jargon over there, UVPs, unique value propositions.
Yes.
ROIs. In case someone's
unique. Well, I guess just to kind of break that down, right? Like when you look at a brand, fundamentally high level, who they are, what they stand for. When you look at UVPs, unique value propositions, or what I like to call reasons to believe, right? Like what makes you competitively unique in the marketplace in regards to some of your competitors as well.
Yeah, absolutely. What he said.
What he said.
With standing out, though, there can be a lot of mistakes that happen. So what are some common mistakes that brands make when positioning themselves?
When everyone gets it right. No, there are a lot of mistakes. I mean, you can start with on the branding side, and then I'll share it.
I just think like, kind of back to one, not, I think, assuming that they know their customer or assuming that they know their audience or assuming that anybody's going to actually love and care about their brand. Like, I think innately, as everybody thinks, like, just because you build it doesn't mean anybody's going to come. Right. And I think like that's the beautiful part about like branding and PR, to kind of piggyback why our partnership to me is just so special and important, is that you have one side brand that's authentic, real, has all the right tools to be successful. Then the other part is you need awareness. right? Like just because I create something that, stands out in the marketplace doesn't mean there's going to get any eyeballs on it. So I think you need that 1 + 1 = 3 effect.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like putting the megaphone now to it. This
Yes,
is all beautiful,
absolutely.
amazing, ready to go. Now let's get it out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times companies don't move fast enough to stay relevant, and they hear the latest fad, like, oh, Google ads. We got to put all our marketing budget in Google
Yeah.
ads because we can say that if we spend 5,000 here, we got this. But maybe that was the trend a year ago, or that may be part of the strategy, but not the full strategy.
Yeah.
And so I think what's great about having partners, agencies like ours, is that that's our job, is to be on top of that stuff and know what's working today with today's customers as everything changes. Because a marketing budget in 2021 is a different marketing budget application in 2025, and it'll look different in 2030. But it all goes back to getting the story right, getting the brand right, and getting that organic visibility, plus figuring out how to move those other levers.
Yeah, I think too, like, as you run and operate a business, right, I think you have to have some part of risk tolerance to kind of go outside the box, right? Like, even though you have a playbook that maybe is to do X, Y, and Z, I think from my point of view, if you're going to be smart with your funds, you need to have a little bit of riskiness to figure out and give an agency like yourself, hey, this thing might come up. We're not even planning on it, but like I'm telling you, if we put our money towards this, it might be the game changer for you.
Absolutely.
And I think like risk tolerance, and for me right now, is more important than ever to take a risk. It is very scary. I understand what the economy is, and I understand what a lot of stuff is at. But at the end of the day, it's like this is the only time to really get noticed.
Exactly, because I think if everybody spends the money the same exact way, you're going
Yep.
to be competing in very hyper-competitive areas.
Absolutely.
And so it is important to try things. It's like Bitcoin for a minute.
Yeah.
See how that works. Go out, right? No, but yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a really good point.
How do you see the relationship between branding and business strategy evolving?
I think, whenever we look at that, right, I think for a lot of years, branding was just meant to be like just creative, right? And I think like at the end of the day, business strategy should be one with branding. And really like when you look at the foundation of a brand, it really comes down to like what's your operations, what's your OpEx, what's your revenue, like what are kind of your goals from a business level? And then how do you have the creative guided by it? Same thing with you guys, right? Like at the end of the day, we all talk about KPIs as kind of a facet to kind of lead your business. And from us, I think they're one of the same now. And I think for a long time, they were treating creative separately as they were business strategy separately.
Yeah, that's the first thing we do when we sit down with a client. We'll say, okay, what are some of your business goals? What are you trying to accomplish as a business? Are you trying to enter into a new market? Are you trying to take up real estate from these other companies? Are you trying to launch 5 different products this year? What are you trying to accomplish? Or is there a profitability number that you're going after? And understanding what the business element is. And then, by the way, what's keeping you up at night? What are your success metrics?
Sure.
Outside of marketing, how are we measuring success? And then great, now that we are aware of that and we know your customer and we know what your story is, now we can talk about some marketing ROI. How are we going to bring that business analysis in line with the marketing goals and make sure that everything's going in the right direction?
Absolutely.
How has PR changed in the digital age, and what strategies are most effective now?
Yeah, PR is evolving so rapidly. There are obviously a lot of still great tools that have been around for many years, right? We still have press events, earned media, those are all powerful tools. And now we know that customers are engaging with brands through different social platforms and different offline activations, different online activations. So it's really become more integrated. And now we want to make sure that not only are we talking to the reporter, we're also talking to a potential influencer who can influence behavior, right? You guys do an amazing job creating these beautiful websites, and they're dynamic and they're engaging. And we need to make sure that those social channels tell the same story. Because if it's confusing, if someone goes onto a social channel, an Instagram for an account or a LinkedIn, they're like, wait a second, I thought these guys said X, but this says Y. We don't want to create too much confusion. We want to make sure that everything's consistent and compelling and creative in the right way. So I think, there's just so many new tools in public relations that can be leveraged. And there is some crossover between organic with a little bit of paid that just looks a little different now than it did a decade ago. But at the end of the day, we do put so much of our emphasis on that organic storytelling because we've seen that ROI be 10 to 1 at a minimum.
Yeah, I think too, like just, from my point of view, I think like people think it's very binary, right? And it's very linear, but I think like if you understand like the whole idea of PR, it's very culturally relevant, right? Like at the end of the day, it doesn't sleep and it's extremely hard, right? And so like how can you effectively get a product or a service inside culture that resonates in a good way that people understand it, right? And I think like from my point of view, watching PR over the years maybe used to be maybe very traditional, linear, 1, 2, 3, but what you guys do is way more complex, right? Like at the end of the day, it's like, how do I get this to resonate? How do I get people to actually notice what I'm doing, back to the point where it takes a ton of touch points to get there.
Yeah.
So it's, you look at these like really big moments, I call it Super Bowl, right? Which is a little bit become more iconic in certain areas. Then you look at these events you guys go to, or like even the influencer stuff. It's like, how do you create an ecosystem for people to fall in love with that brand? And that truly is what PR is. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing the mark on, is that like, you're just giving them the brand and you're really ultimately trying to find a lifestyle. And that is so hard to do.
Yeah, I love that. And to add to it, that's on a good day. Now,
Yeah.
what's different today versus a decade ago,
Oh,
if a
yeah.
crisis happens,
Yep.
how many people find out about it in the next hour, right? We used to, if a company was in trouble, something happened, information trickles down. If they have a good PR firm, they step forward and they acknowledge what had happened, if it was a mistake or someone said something. Nowadays, a lot of brands don't jump on things fast enough. They don't realize how social media can just amplify so quickly. And before you know it, stock is plummeting,
Yep.
customers are dropping, right? All because they didn't handle the crisis. So I think that's another big thing that's happened, is now that we have so much information and it travels at the speed of light. And so you really have to be on top of your reputation and have the right partners in place to protect it. After you spend all that time and money growing it and building it,
Yeah.
you also want to make sure you want to protect it.
Yeah.
Because it can, what does it say? That's the famous quote, it takes 30 years to build your reputation and 30 seconds to destroy it.
That's very overwhelming.
Not too much.
What role does authenticity play in modern PR and brand storytelling?
Yeah, I think, for me, I think it comes down to, it's going to be everything moving forward, right? Like even when we look at like AI and a lot of the technology that's doing, I think the only thing that does separate anything is authenticity. And I think like when you look back at moments, I kind of like to look at like brands as like now stories, right? You're kind of seeing a lot of fashion brands being like, hey, the way they launch it is in more of like chapter books, right? And so for me, authenticity is like, how do I connect with my consumer? How do I make something that's relevant? And how do I add value in your life? And so it's just like so interesting to watch it shift from what was like kind of a buzzword to now actually have so much substance and meaning if you find the right route to where you're going with it as well.
Absolutely. I love where we are right now with authenticity and where it's going, and it's so critical. And I think, AI has been a game changer, and it's not the end all be all. And now we're starting to see, even thinking about LinkedIn and thought leadership, you can start seeing who used AI
Oh, yeah.
and just went copy paste,
Yep.
and who maybe leveraged AI as a tool but put their own authentic spin on it. And even that makes a difference. So I think it is a beautiful reminder to always go back to, okay, what do you really stand for? And be consistent around it. Because if you misstep, if you're inauthentic, you're eventually going to misstep. And then again, real quick, that reputation goes in a different direction.
Absolutely.
How can brands build a deeper trust with their audiences in 2025?
What we're starting to see, like another kind of trend, right? Like I think to step back, we've seen, retail becoming really popular. We've seen online shifting because ad dollars in real ads not working as well. And then we've also seen a huge trend towards like hyper localization. So like from my point of view, we're seeing like the running clubs, or we're seeing all these like kind of areas where brands are starting to invest. So I think like that's how brands are starting to show up, is I think the more value they add, whether it is, hey, I have a brand, but I'm going to sponsor an event and I'm actually going to like create apparel that adds value to your life type of thing. That's where I think brands are moving towards. And kind of what you're saying earlier, like the experiential point of view and how to kind of connect the dots. And that's where I'm seeing it. And to be honest with you, I think that should be the baseline to even be business, right? Like if you're not adding value to consumers' point, why can you just throw ads at them? Right.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we're seeing a lot.
Well, and then that goes back to what's the Netflix documentary out there right now? It's about just overproducing, overconsumption,
Yeah. Oh,
and
yes.
how, the Shanes of the world and all those, you're just sending a bunch of products
Yeah.
that eventually, that's not adding value. It's instant gratification. Oh, I bought it, it's in my house tomorrow. Amazing.
Yeah.
But it's not adding value and does not have a long-term legs. And so there's a lot of money and investment going into it, and it doesn't stand the test of time without that authenticity and without what we're talking about.
I mean, yeah, and then you're seeing like kind of like supply chains get all messed up too, right? Because what's happening is the overconsumption, thankfully, like brands like Levi's or stuff like that, they're actually trying to find ways to be more in the vintage realm, right? Because as the cost of goods sold goes higher, and then you're trying to like operate in a way that makes sense fiscally for you, you can't bring to market that type of stuff. And then you have fast fashion and all these other things too. So it has been kind of cool to see some fashion brands kind of invest a little bit in that, because that's what the consumers want too.
Yeah.
And they should have been doing that all along. But,
Absolutely.
you know.
And I do love to see the pull towards quality over quantity, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's still has a ways to go.
Well, you don't want to buy everything on Temu?
But not everything. But and it's tough because with Amazon and everything, you can buy today and get instant gratification.
Absolutely.
Right? You can click on an Instagram like shopping cart, boom. And that's a challenge to overcome, because that is the opposite of quality, patience, drive somewhere to go pick up the shirt that you want. But
Yep.
there is the market for that, and it is working. It's just finding that right balance, that we don't gravitate too much to the stuff, because at the end of the day, the reward is going to be in the quality.
Absolutely.
How do you measure success in PR beyond just media placements?
Well, it's, we like to look at things qualitatively and quantitatively in public relations, right? So quantitative, yes, we want to see the type of coverage and how many placements, how many potential call eyeballs get to see a story, how we maximize the PR exposure, right? So does this story go through social media? Does it go through companies' newsletters, their blogs? So PR and the PR, and that is a numbers game at some point. And there's of course also other measurables, like some companies compare advertising value. If I were to get a mention in a Forbes, what is that value compared to me printing an advertisement in Forbes? But there's also the qualitative, right? So what we're talking about, the storytelling, is the message getting through? Are we properly positioned in the market? Are our customers truly understanding what we stand for, how we're different, what our unique value proposition is? And are we starting to see that increased interest? Are we taking real estate away from competing brands? What is our share of voice? Right? Through the 7 years we got to work with AT&T, a big part of it was looking at where is our brand as compared to other telecommunications providers. And we would measure that on an ongoing basis. And what do we need to do to be more present, to be top of mind? To your point about us getting 30 notifications to remember, it takes 20 to 30 times to hear a message for the first time. And so we need to measure that too. Just because we have one great story doesn't mean that it's going to move the needle. So what are these other elements that we have to do that's part of the integrated PR? Whether it is social media impressions, saves, shares, likes, all the things that add up to the value between the quantitative and the qualitative.
How do you, I guess just like on that too, I think like for me, what do you feel about like the intangible value that people could have that?
Absolutely. That does fall within the qualitative area. But
Okay.
that is the brand equity, right? The continued share that you're getting in the customer's mind, right? You're getting brain space and you're getting reminded and reaffirmed. So absolutely that builds into a bigger brand connection that a customer will have through that consistent, compelling messaging.
Awesome.
What has made your collaboration unique and successful?
I go back to two words I think are very important in today's day and age, is being, very gritty and scrappy. And then I also think just like doing the best for clients, right? And I think like we have a very shared value set, right? And that's stuff that can't be taught. You either have it or you don't. And I think we both just felt the same thing, that we want what's best for people, but then we're also at the cutting edge of everything that we're trying to do. And so when you work with clients, like, I remember my first conversation with you is like, you truly pride that your company is an extension of their company. And as cliche as you want to say that, like, that is what a true partnership means, that you have their back through the good times, the bad times, you name it. And I think that's what's really special about us. And I know that's equally what you guys share as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think to your point, shared vision, shared values. I love how creative you are, and we're able to just brainstorm, but then say, okay, cool. Now, how do we put that in practice that actually makes money for our clients?
100%.
How do we drive sales? We'll take this crazy idea, we'll, shake it out a little bit. Now, here's how we activate it, and how do we work closely together? And I think even updating when we're working with a brand and we need some assets, you guys do such a great job creating some of those assets that tell the story visually and with the right words that we're able to then take and share that with the masses. So I love that. And I just think energy, I think a lot of it has to do with finding the right partners, whether it's partners like us or even client partners or the teams that you hire, making sure that we're aligned on energy. Because if I'm having this conversation where you're super excited about an idea and I say, yeah, cool, I don't know.
Not a good vibe.
Not a good vibe. We don't want to work together. We're probably just a misaligned, and that's okay. There's a lot of different people out there. we want to make sure that we are feeding off that energy, looking at the quantitative stuff and staying creative.
Yeah, and I think too, like, what I very much, appreciate is just having a short and long-term vision, right? Because I think like a roadmap, a lot of times everybody can't see past the trees, right? That analogy. And I think like where we're at is like, you got to have the big picture idea, and then you have to find a way to distill it down that actually makes sense for your client, right? And I think a lot of people kind of go towards the trendy stuff, right? Like, okay, what am I seeing now? Where should I shift my budget? But like at the end of the day, like double down on things that are working for you and then actually go all in on it. And I think that's something where you and I both have patience at that. It's like, hey, we're confident in what we're doing. Let's do a great job. Let's try to become the best of what we can do. And I know you match that type of like drive and energy and passion towards it as well.
Yeah, love that.
Can you share a project or a moment that really stood out during your partnership?
You want to talk about how you crashed Screwball Whiskey's website?
We can talk about that. Yeah, that was a big problem to have, right?
Yes.
In 2018, I believe it was, we had collectively brought Screwball to life, and one of the first media placements that we had for them, Brittany, and a very, very small team was the Today Show, where we had, and it was actually really hard to get alcohol on the morning shows.
Yeah.
And but the way we worked around it is we said, well, you can put this on ice cream. Vanilla ice cream and Screwball peanut butter whiskey go really, really well together. And so we had that morning show where Al Roker and Crewe, they had their vanilla ice cream there, and they were putting the Screwball and they were tasting, we were talking about it, and it aired 9 a.m. Eastern time or 6 a.m. Pacific time.
Yeah.
And I remember getting a text from you at like 6:15 going, what's happening? The website is crashing. That's because all these people were starting Googling and going on the website as a result of that great placement.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's like you rarely see that, right, at all. And yeah, I just remember even having that, and then I was like, wow, that's like the biggest thing. And then I remember even talking to Steven about it, and I was like, man, you better be ready for this. Because like that was definitely, and I think like it was such a cool time, just like even with Screwball as well, is that like they had the pair of authenticity, they had the pair of like being different, and then they had the other thing too, where they had like a local kind of flair too, right? And so I think as a business, you kind of choose your advantages wisely year after year, and you kind of like are always playing, chess or checkers, depending on which way you want to go, and then you figure out exactly what it is. And I think like that relationship was just the beginning of so many things. And I even remember all the press that I saw of you guys getting throughout the years. It was just, you guys are so thrifty and specific with how you even got it. And I think that's what was so impressive, because I think most companies maybe only go after one type of press, but it felt like the uniqueness and the depthness of each of them was totally unparalleled. And I know that's something that they very much appreciated, because like obviously with any founder, right, your story and your narrative's shifting a little bit time after time and figuring out who you are. So yeah, that was a fun time to say the least, and now they're crushing it.
Yeah,
so.
well, it was also, you eat a life in such a remarkable way. The bottle has become so iconic, right? It is now in Australia, New Zealand, Mercury was all over, and continuing to dominate the globe. And I just love every time I see it at a restaurant, at a bar, at a store. I always think back to how you brought that to life and how iconic it has become. So the synergies were so great, and but your talents were really next level to be able to create something so memorable, so lasting.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I was in New York City last year, and yeah, they're all over all the billboards and everything, and you're just like, whoa, that's crazy. Like, I think it's come a long way, for sure.
Right. Didn't you have some of the original bottle designs?
Oh, I still have them all.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I have it all. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's like the cool thing, too, just to even see the brand, kind of how far it's come, and just like kind of look back at like the OG days and kind of be like, wow, like that was special. Like very special.
Maybe one day I'll be on Christie's auction floor in New York.
I have actually seen it like OG, like in some thrift stores and stuff.
Right.
Like I'll see like hats and stuff like that in New York. Well, typically it was actually in Brooklyn. They have like these like one-off, like on Sundays they have these, farmers markets, and I've seen it there, like some of their hats and stuff like that. I'm like, that's pretty sick.
Yeah. It's OG, that means that was a long time ago. What does that say for us?
Yeah. It means we're gangsters.
Nostalgia.
That's what it means. Exactly.
What have been the biggest learnings from working together?
Well, I think it's been, even though I knew when we started working together how much synergy there is between what Movetic does and what Crowe PR does, I think it's just been really rooted firmly over the years of, wow, yes, we cannot exist without one another. Brands cannot exist without what we do.
Yep.
And so we still ride the wave of different tactics and different strategies coming in and noise. But at the end of the day, it goes back to this is the most important foundational stuff you need to do as any company, whether you're a brand new company entering the market, whether you've been around for 50 or 100 years. Similarly, we see with brands that big household brands that don't stand the test of time. They haven't evolved. They haven't come up with a new persona. They haven't come up with a new look and feel. They haven't connected with their customers. They haven't promoted themselves, right? A lot of companies fail as a result of not being able to keep up. So that's really just been foundational for me as a great reminder over the years.
Yeah, I think too, just to add to it, is a big thing that's understated is just trust, right? Like at the end of the day, I just trust that you guys can do a killer job.
Yeah.
And I think time and time again, that's like the output of that scene, right? I think like any time in a relationship that you work with, it's all about setting them up for success. And I think that's what's so unique. It's like, we've always been unified, right? Like there hasn't been a time where we're not on the same page or want the best interest for our clients. And I think like, as we all like go through this landscape that we're existing in, it's like finding people that you can trust to really just do a good job for each other.
Yeah.
I think that's truly been kind of the separator for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
How do branding and PR fuel each other to create lasting impact?
Yeah, I'd say like it starts with obviously the story and then finding a sweet spot in the marketplace. And then I think finding a way to activate it, right? And so I think like for me, I've always only wanted to find a genuine story. And then I've only ever wanted to discover a story in the right place. I think when you become inauthentic or you try to put your brand in an area or a field that maybe doesn't make sense or it hasn't earned the respect, right, to be in that market, right? Because I think there's a little bit of that too. I think that's where a lot of times people kind of flop in regards to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do a lot of our own due diligence when we partner with brands that we're not as familiar with, right? We want to make sure that we can do a litmus test and everything checks out, because it can be easy to put a bunch of beautiful story but then there's no substance. And I think you guys do a really good job making sure there is a story, there's something to work with and work from, and you're not just putting, what's that expression, lipstick
on thing.
genuinely, it's a great organization, it's a great company, it's going to make some positive impact. It just needs a little bit of elevation, a little bit of positioning, perhaps changing, a little bit of a facelift, and it needs the ability to be broadcasted out to their customers. So it's not the best kept secret.
We've seen a lot of international brands coming to the US and vice versa, US brands now launching globally. How do you approach it in terms of creating a brand that speaks to all different types of markets?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think like anytime you're trying to take a brand from another market and bring it into another environment, it has to come down to, does it resonate with your target demographic, right? And so for us, we've had experience with specifically one company called Harcourt's Auctions, right? And so they're from Australia, they're actually from all over the US. And so what they need to do is they want to bring their appetite of auctioning homes actually from there into the US marketplace. And I think what was so special was there's a lot of nuances that are a little bit different in the US marketplace and depending on where they're at. And so as a conduit to being, whether it's local, regional, or national, you really have to find a way to kind of talk the same language and then help them navigate those waters, because we all know there's different society trends, there's different culture trends in different areas, but how can they essentially break in the best in our market as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think over the years we've brought in a few multi-million-dollar brands, global brands into the US, whether it was apparel, we've done baby food, we've done a sustainable pasta company. And the one thing remains the same for us when it comes down to the messaging. Certain words may not resonate. There might be a cultural difference. There might be a linguistic difference, right? You might be using a certain word and it doesn't quite resonate. So is that a word we want to change? Maybe, depending on the goals in the brand. So putting that US lens or putting a different market lens on that brand is really important. And then how do you speak? How do you communicate with your customers? Because what your offer may be so different, and there might need to be a big educational element, right? One market customers may be used to certain things, what they're seeing in the market. And if you're bringing something completely differently or it's positioned very differently, there needs to be an element of education. So for us, the PR strategy may look a little different. And we may incorporate some additional thought leadership. We may incorporate some consumer studies. We may incorporate some on-site, on-premise events to really drive home the educational element. So now the consumer knows what they're getting, or the B2B customer similarly, and they feel connected and they're starting to engage.
How are you able to kind of, leverage relationships? Because I feel like with your guys' portfolio of companies that you guys have worked with, like, don't you think that's something that a lot of people overseas might want to take advantage of? And how do you do that? And what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every industry is obviously a little bit different, but because we've had experience with a range of industries, we are able to connect the dots quite a bit.
Okay.
Right, and that can be something, of course, like connecting the dots for a storyline on the PR side, but then also if there are customers looking to enter, Target or Best Buy, for instance. We work with influencers that also collaborate with those things. We're able to create some partnerships for these brands that potential retailers will be interested in seeing and drive additional visibility from that standpoint. And then, of course, other relationships with regards to markets.
What's one piece of advice you'd give to brands looking to grow in 2025?
Yeah, I'd say, focus on being unique and different and actually like kind of re-auditing what you're doing. And I think right now is the perfect time to analyze and see where you've come over the last X amount of years, or if you are starting that new, figure out what are the baseline metrics that you want to have and understand that things have shifted a lot. So for me, it's kind of like almost doing like a deep dive into your soul, into who you are, into your ethos. And then also challenging yourself that, like, at the end of the day, a lot of things have shifted. So you really need to play a little bit differently now.
Yeah, and I would add to that, for us, is really understanding your customer and what drives their behavior, why they want to engage with you, what are you offering that's unique and different to them. And then for us is, okay, where is that customer getting their information from? What is going to drive and influence that customer to connect with your brand over a different brand? Really understanding that. And it's not a numbers game. It's not about just dropping money and you want to test some things, but you want to be really strategic, I think, about how you're testing. And from a standpoint of doing some of the things that are tried and proven and leaving space to test some new things, because inevitably things will evolve. But also just really keeping a strong pulse on your industry, how your competitors are engaging with customers, and foreseeing some of the changes and challenges, for whether it's the political climate or economic climate, being aware of it, but not letting that stop or prevent or hinder, because when you stop talking to your customers and you pull the marketing lever down a little bit, someone else is ramping it up, and then it's going to take so much time and so much resources. You might not be able to get back to the same stage if you slow down, so continuing your PR efforts, even if they're having your launch, is so critical, because it's noisy out there and things are just going to take over if you're not out there.
It's extremely noisy. Absolutely.
Any final thoughts or words of wisdom for brands looking to elevate their presence?
Hire a Movetic, and then Josh will put you in touch with us.
And then it'll be 1 + 1 = 3.
Exactly, winning recipe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, such a good question. For me, 2025, reinvention. And then I think, like, what was your theme that you guys are looking to do again?
Raise the bar.
Raise the bar. What do you feel like that has to kind of help other companies in regards to that?
Yeah, I think last year a lot of companies were pretty shy about spending their dollars. Not everybody, every industry is different, but we did see some, investments decrease a little bit, and it was a strange year. Election year, they call it a strange year because no one knows how it's going to end up. So it does. A lot of people were saying, okay, let's get into 2025 and then we can reply. And I am feeling that already. I am seeing that across numerous industries. So I think it's go time. Just keep innovating, leading your industry. Don't wait to see what else is happening. Just go for it. And I think take a little bit of risk and try to be creative, try to be a little bit different. So I think probably similar to what you're envisioning.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. I think for us, like, I love how you guys have your own goal set. For us, it's just elevation. Right? Like, I think, like, the biggest thing is that, like, take what you're doing and what you've done and just challenge yourself to progress and be a little bit better at what you're doing. And I think that's what the market wants. And I think as a business owner, that's what you got to challenge yourself to do, because you're never going to know all the answers. You might not make the right move, but if you just keep pushing forward, kind of like us, we just love the idea of, like, stay moving. It's really going to do a lot of stuff for you.
Yeah, so we're raising the bar, you're elevating, so we'll see you right over here.
Yeah, let's go.
Well, thank you for your time today, my friend. Always a pleasure to chat. And people can visit us on crowepr.com or on our Instagram, LinkedIn channels at Crowe PR, and sign up for our newsletter and all the things.
Yep, same thing, themovetic.com, IG, or LinkedIn.
Thank you. Thank you.